Hi everyone, welcome to Acutely Amanda. I'm Amanda. Today is the start of a series of decluttering my books. Now I'm an avid reader and I also love cooking, and I have 11 shelves of books. Don't worry, we're not doing them all today. I started with just 2 shelves, which is 72 books total that I'm going to be going through. So that's quite a few books, so let's get started. This archery book was a gift from my father, who unfortunately passed away in 2015. When I was a freshman in high school, I did competitive archery, and it was a gift from him, so I will be keeping it. This was also a gift from my father. It's called The Latka Who Couldn't Stop Screaming. He bought this for me when I was home on winter break from my university. I am not Jewish, but the school I attended had a large Jewish population, and I was recently into latkes, and that's why he got it for me. And I just think it's a really cute book, so I'll be keeping that as well. This is a Dutch children's book called Nijntje and Nina. I am not Dutch, but my husband is part Dutch, and I really got into the children's bunny Miffy, she's called in English, but in Dutch she's called Nijntje, and one of my really good friends is called Nina, so he got this as a gift for me. I really like it, so I'm keeping it. I promise I'm going to read some things. I just happen to be starting with a lot of my favorites in this stack. This is the Joy Luck Club. This was also a gift from my father, so I'm keeping it. This is another Dutch book called The Winterboek. My husband got this for me when he went to the Netherlands when we first met, so I'll be keeping that as well. This book, Pistol Packin' Madams, was a gift from my father when he was living in Montana. I'll be keeping that. Be Expert with Map and Compass is another gift from my father, so I'll be keeping that as well. Whew. All right. A Banquet for Hungry Ghosts. This is one of my favorite short story collections. They're all set in China, and they come with recipes, which I just really like it, so I'll be keeping that. Fudoki is a book about a tortoiseshell cat in Japan. I actually have a tortoiseshell cat, and I really love this book, so I'll be keeping it. All right, Dark Life. This I really enjoyed. It's a book set on the bottom of the ocean. It's like a sci-fi future, so I'll be keeping that as well. I promise we're going to get to weeding. The Kin of Ada Are Waiting for You. This is an unusual and a little bit difficult to find sci-fi book, so I'll be keeping this. Charlotte Sometimes. This is a book about a little girl who accidentally time travels and then has to try to find her way back. I feel iffy on this one, so I'm going to put it on the maybe pile. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now this is in it's not in copyright anymore, so it's really easy to get for free online. But this is actually my copy from university, which is full of my notes that I took, and Frankenstein is one of my favorite stories, so I'll be keeping it, but just for my own notes. Life as We Knew It. This is a dystopia about the moon moving location. While I really enjoyed it, I don't think I'm ever going to reread it, and it wasn't a favorite, so I'm going to be getting rid of this one. So that's going on the no pile. Alright, next pile. And you'll hear me say weeding occasionally. That's because I'm a trained librarian, and so that's what I was taught to call it when you get rid of a book, so I still say it accidentally sometimes. Kushiel's Dark. This is a fantasy book with a bisexual character, which is sometimes kind of hard to find. While I really enjoyed it, though, I don't feel the need to have a physical copy. It's really easily available digitally, and it's, as you can tell, it takes up a lot of room, so I'm going to get rid of that. The Giver. I had to get this for college. I read it, I remember enjoying it, but in all honesty, I had to look up the plot of the book because I didn't remember what it was. This is really easy to find and cheap, so I'm just going to get rid of it because I don't think it meant that much to me. To Say Nothing of the Dog is one of my favorite books of all time. It's a sci-fi time travel novel that I find hilariously funny. I also have an audio copy of this, and I'm going to keep both. Uncle Tom's Cabin. This was also for college. While it's a very important and meaningful book, it's out of copyright. I didn't really take any interesting notes in this. I highlighted a few passages, but there's not too much that I wrote down here Actually, I didn't write any notes down. So I think that it would serve my space better to just have this digitally. So I'm going to get rid of that. Understood Betsy was a gift from one of my aunts. It's a book about a little girl who's easily misunderstood, even though everyone thinks they understand her. And I thought it was very meaningful to me. I felt like she understood me when she gave it to me. So I'm going to keep that. Jane Eyre. This is one of my favorite books, and again, it's full of my notes from college, as you can see. So I'm going to keep it for the notes, even though it's easy to get. Cranford. This is a book I read in college. I kept it because it was a woman author, but I had to look up the story because I didn't really remember what it was, so I feel like that's a sign, so I'm going to get rid of it. So Long a Letter. This is a piece of, oh gosh, I think it's set in Senegal. I read this in college, but I didn't like it very much. I just kept it because, I mean, it's a beautiful cover. It's about a polygamous marriage, not really polyamorous. But it's not really my jam, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Ethan Frome. This is a classic piece of New England literature, at least it's set in New England. This was a gift from my dad in high school. It's also full of my high school notes, so I'm going to keep that. The Group. This is one of my favorite books. It's about a group of women who are friends in the middle of the 20th century. I really enjoyed it, so I'm going to keep it. This is a 5 out of 5 star read. When I say I really enjoyed it, that's what I mean. The Woman Destroyed. I had to look up to see how I felt about this. This is actually a collection of short stories by Simone de Beauvoir. This is easily available from the public library in the Kindle edition, and I just don't think I liked it enough to hold on to it physically as well, so I'm going to get rid of it. Slow Risen Among the Smoke Trees. I actually posted a poll on Twitter about whether or not I should keep this. This is a collection of poetry from one of my English classes in college. It's signed by the author because she came and visited our class. She was supposed to end up being a really big deal, but she wasn't. Not a big poetry person, and I just this book of poetry really isn't my thing, so I'm gonna let it go. And that was Twitter's vote as well, if you're wondering. Peyton Place. This piece of literature was really controversial when it was first published. It's a shocking story set in New Hampshire. I went to high school in New Hampshire. I just really love how New Hampshire-y this is. So even though this isn't one of my favorite books, I'm still going to keep it because it's a little bit hard to find. I wrestled about whether or not to keep The Piano Teacher by Elfriede Jelinek. It's a piece of German literature in translation. German is one of my foreign languages. I really feel like I need to reread this. I remember really liking it when I read it in college, but I saw recently that it's controversial, and I don't remember feeling controversial about it when I read it in college. So I'd really like to reread it. So since I want to reread it, I'm going to keep it. Plus the cover is really cool. And then we have Wild Swans, Three Daughters of China. I love this book, and I also saw the play that was based upon this book done locally. So I definitely want to keep that. So that's the first shelf. I'm going to split this pile up so it doesn't topple on me. Okay. Alright, let's move on to the second shelf. Now, I have a tendency to put the books I like the best towards the far left end, and that's the side I'm starting with, so there's going to be a lot of keeps again from this side of the shelf. Moon Rabbit, this is a children's book that was a gift from my husband, so I'm definitely keeping it. How Do Dinosaurs Say Merry Christmas? Again, this was a gift from my husband. I'm going to keep it. Dr. Seuss's Sleep Book. This was to replace one of my favorite childhood books that I didn't end up with for whatever reason. And it has a tendency to be able to put me to sleep even today, so I'm going to keep it. The Berenstain Bears Easter Sunday. This is signed to me. This is from when I went to a library event. back when I was working as a librarian. I loved the Berenstain Bears as a child. I don't have any of their other books from when I was a child, so I'm going to keep that. Nobody's Duck. This was a gift from my husband, so I'm going to keep that. Ich bin die kleine Katze. So German is one of my foreign languages, and this is a children's book to practice German, and I love cats. It's about a small cat, so I'm going to keep that. This is a German language book that I actually won in high school for reciting poetry in German, so I'm definitely going to keep that. It has a sticker in it about it being bestowed to me by the Republic of Germany, which is really cool, so I'm going to keep that. This was my favorite joke book as a little girl, so I'm going to keep that. This is another German language book that I actually bought when I was in Germany on an exchange program in high school, so I'm going to keep that. This is another German book. This one's about Christmas Eve. It's a children's book, so it's easy to read, so I'm going to keep that too. Alright. Queer Dear Mrs. Goose. This was one of my favorite books as a child. I looked this up, and it's actually a little bit rare, which I had no idea, so I'm definitely going to keep that because it wouldn't be easy to replace. Alright. This book, Indian Captive, by Lois Lenski, is a little bit controversial these days. I feel like I would like to reread it and see what I think for myself as a grown-up. I loved it as a child, but I was a differently informed person as a child. But I'm going to keep it for now until I've been able to reread it. These are both horse books because I was a little bit of a horse girl. It's The Horse That Came to Breakfast and Maggie's Wish. Don't really remember them, and I feel like I should reread them before I get rid of them. Especially The Horse That Came to Breakfast, because this is actually kind of hard to find these days. I looked. Maggie's Wish is available digitally, so I could get rid of it. But I'm going to keep it until I've been able to reread it. The Ugly Duckling and Other Fairy Tales. This is a couple of my favorite fairy tales in it. Thumbelina and The Little Match Girl. I'm going to keep it because of that. I know they're available digitally, but I also just think this is a cute copy. Ivanhoe I got as a child and then I never read, and I feel like I owe it to myself and to my parents who got it for me to read it, so I'm going to keep it until I've read it. Scottish Fairy Tales. I'm part Scottish, and again, I haven't read it, and I feel like I owe it to myself to read it, so I'm going to read it. With Daring Faith, this is the story of Amy Carmichael, who is a missionary in India. This book meant a lot to me as a little girl because there's a whole section of the book about her having brown eyes and not liking them, and that I had a similar hang-up when I was little, and so this book meant a lot to me when my parents got it for me, so I'm going to keep it. Another horse book, King of the Wind. I've got to reread it before I make a decision, so I'm going to keep it. Kavik the Wolf Dog. I loved this book as a little girl and reread it a lot, so I'm going to keep that. Casto. This is another book where I feel like I need to do a little bit more research about its representation and maybe reread it to make up my mind. I thought that it was well done when I was a little girl, but I've read some stuff recently about it, so I'm not sure. I need a little more time to think about it and to reread it, so I'm going to do that. Oh my goodness. Am I going to get rid of anything from this shelf? Ah. Okay. The Monstrumologist. This is one of the last books that both my father and I read and talked about and really liked. So it holds a lot of meaning to me because of that. So I'm going to keep it because of that. For now. Maybe one day I'll be able to release it, but not right now. The Traveler is one of my favorite books. It mixes kind of anarchy and Buddhism, and it also has motorcycles in it. I love this book. And there's a part of me that's paranoid it won't be available digitally just because of its plot, because it's an anarchist paranoid plot about censorship and things like that. So I'm definitely going to keep my physical copy of that. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This was, I wrote a big major paper about this in college, and so this is absolutely chock full of my notes. So again, even though this is available digitally easily, all of these notes that I took absolutely are not, and it helps me remember my own paper, so I'm going to keep this. Selected Tales of Edgar Allan Poe. I looked this up to see because I thought, oh, this must be easily available digitally. This exact copy is, but I need to be mindful of how I'm spending money right now. Other digital copies, though, that are free are not very well reviewed. It's out of copyright, but whether or not they're put together well. And this has a couple of my favorite stories in it, like The Telltale Heart, so I'm going to keep it. Stand on Zanzibar by John Brunner. John Brunner is one of my all-time favorite authors, and I actively collect his books physically for the covers, for the original covers. So I'm going to be keeping that because it's part of my collection. Similarly, Michael Crichton is one of my favorite authors, and I keep every Michael Crichton book I manage to get my hands on. So I have Sphere, I have Jurassic Park. Yeah. Man Plus, this is another old sci-fi that I'm going to be keeping for the cover for right now because I loved it. This was a 5-star read. Similarly, I, Robot, I Love Everything by Asimov, so I'm going to be keeping that. Now we're entering the books that were from my film noir class in college, and I absolutely love film noir. So the noir books that those films were based upon, The Maltese Falcon, whoop, dropped it. The Maltese Falcon, that's a keep. The Lady in the Lake, that's a keep. Double Indemnity, that's a keep. This I thought I was going to be able to get rid of because Wodehouse is basically out of copyright from what I can tell. But wow, is Mulliner Nights specifically hard to find? The Jeeves books are really easy to find, but Mulliner Nights is hard to find. So, and this is a short story collection I love, so I'm going to keep it. All right. Oh, this big old chunkster is Don Juan, or as I was by Lord Byron, or as apparently Lord Byron pronounced it according to my college English class, Don Juan. This is an epic poem, which while I enjoyed the class, in retrospect, I enjoyed it largely because of my friends who were in it and us all chatting together about things. The actual poetry was not my jam, and this is a huge book, so I'm going to get rid of it. And you're probably not going to be surprised to find out that Lord Byron selected poems, same class. Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of that. I enjoyed the people, but I don't need to have the books around to remember hanging out with my friends and learning with them. Okay, one more pile from that shelf. Neuromancer by William Gibson. This is signed by William Gibson when I met him at a book event, so I'm definitely keeping that. Another Isaac Asimov book. This is the collection of The Rest of the Robots. I'm definitely going to keep that. The Great Escape. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I love having the book, so I'm going to keep it. The Tailor of Gloucester by Beatrix Potter. I love Beatrix Potter. I love the illustrations in this book, so I'm going to keep that. Another John Brunner, so I'm sure you're not surprised to see I'm keeping that. The World Inside by Robert Silverberg. Love this book, one of my favorite books. It's about an overpopulated Earth with people living in like a giant tower. I think this came out in the 70s. No, 1983. Oh no. This edition is 1983. It was originally 1970. It's a very 70s vibe in this book, and I love it, so I'm going to keep it. Rainbow Man. This is a book about, it's really an exploration of gender on another planet. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know that I need to keep it. I'm going to put it on the maybe pile. I'm going to investigate how easy it is to get a copy of, because some of the older queer sci-fi is hard to get a copy of, so I want to make sure that it would be easy for me to get it if I wanted to, or if I recommended it to a friend, if I wanted them to read it. Whereas maybe I would want to be able to loan this to a friend if it's hard to get. So I'm going to put that on the maybe pile with Charlotte sometimes. And then Ray Bradbury's Dinosaur Tales. Love this book. Love the illustrations in this book. It's a collection of short stories that all involve dinosaurs. And I love it, so I'm keeping it. Okay, so I think it's probably easier to talk about how many books I've successfully gotten rid of. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 definitely getting rid of, and 2 maybes. And I actually discovered an extra book stuck The Berenstain Bears book I didn't realize was in there when I was doing my initial counting. So I had 73 books, and what did I just say, 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I got it down to 63, maybe 61, depending on what I do with those two. I will update you in the next book decluttering video about what I decided to do with Charlotte Sometimes and Rainbow Man. Let me know in the comments what you think I should do with Charlotte Sometimes and Rainbow Man. And were there any books that I said I was keeping that you think I should just get rid of without rereading first? Maybe I'm making things more complicated for myself than I need to by saying, oh, I should reread it before I make up my mind. Let me know in the comments, and let me know how you decide what to do with your books.